We are standing a few days before Chag Purim, and to discuss a little bit of a Chazal, the words of our Chazal, that they explain Purim in a light that really is very difficult for us to comprehend. We all know that when the Bnei Yisrael, she's fine. When the Bnei Yisrael accepted the Torah, so we all know that they said Na'aseh v'nishma. We will do and we will listen, and they were rewarded for their unquestioning commitment to Hashem and to the mitzvos. And we all know we were a nation that put our mouths and our actions before our ears. We said we'll do it, and then we decided that we're going to listen to what Hashem had to instruct us. And that's a pretty loyal expression of faith and trust. And that gained us the title of the chosen nation. But soon thereafter it says that Hashem placed a mountain over the Bnei Yisrael and said to them, if you accept the Torah, fine. But if not, you're finished. And the question is quite obvious. Tosfos asked the question, or the Rishonim asked the question, if they said Na'aseh v'nishma, then why was it necessary for Hashem to force the Bnei Yisrael to accept the Torah? They said we will do and we will listen. In fact, the Gemara even says that the fact that Hashem put the mountain over the Bnei Yisrael is a disclaimer for the Jews that should they in future years rebel, they will always have this disclaimer saying, well, listen, Hashem, you forced us. You put the mountain over our heads. But the question is, they said Na'aseh v'nishma. What's also strange is that in that Gemara in Shabbos, Peches, it also says that in the days of Achashverosh, in the times of Purim, then the Bnei Yisrael accepted the Torah willingly. Because the pasuk says, Kimu v'kiblu ha'yehudim aleim v'alzarom. They accepted upon themselves and their children, they accepted the Torah. And there they accepted the Torah willingly. So the Gemara is trying to say that even though that at the time of Matan Torah, Hashem had to give a force to the Bnei Yisrael, he needed to do some coercion, but in the times of Achashverosh and the times of Purim, Bnei Yisrael readily, willingly re-accepted the Torah, reaffirmed their commitment, and did it willingly without anybody forcing them to do so. And the question is quite obvious. What is this part of the Torah that they did accept? Which Torah were they forced? And which part of the Torah did they re-accept when it came the time of Purim? One of the answers that's given is that what the Bnei Yisrael accepted at the time of Har Sinai, when the Torah was given to them, was what we call Torah Shebechsav, the written law. The written law is the Chamisha Chumshei Torah, the Divrei Tanakh, the Divrei Nevi'im, whatever is written down in the Torah, that's called Torah Shebechsav. Torah Shebal Peh is what now we call Gemara, Mishnah, Talmud. All of those parts of the Torah are not written, but they are derived from discussion, from a process of learning one thing from another thing, being able to apply one halacha to another halacha, and association of different halachas, and even the creation of halacha for instances that the Torah doesn't discuss. I mean, how do we find the halacha about a Shabbos elevator, and are you allowed to use it? How many people are allowed to go in it? You're not going to find that anywhere in the Torah. If you want to talk about the dateline, travel into outer space, you're not going to find it there. The halachas of treifos, and what animal is kosher, and which types of flaws in the biological system of an animal deem it treif that don't allow it to be eaten. A lot of those halachas are halachas that are derived and are not written anywhere beferish in the Torah. So the Rishonim say that the Torah Shebechsav was what they accepted, the written law. But it was the oral law that was difficult for them to accept. And that needed a coercion, that needed Hashem to put the Har Sinai on top of them. And in the days of Achashverosh, that Torah was accepted. And it's, again, hard to understand what exactly is the difference between these two Torahs, and what changed in the time of Mordechai and Esther. And I was thinking to say that, it's interesting that when Moshe Rabbeinu did not come back from Har Sinai, after 40 days, there was a little bit of a mistake in the calculation, and the Bnei Yisrael just lost it. And they ran to Aaron and they said, what's going on? Moshe Rabbeinu's not here. He said he was coming back after 40 days. It's 40 days. They didn't realize that their calculation was wrong because it needed to be full 40 days and they didn't calculate correctly. But they said the following words. They said, Aaron, you have to make us a new God because this Moshe Rabbeinu, lo yadanu mehayalo, we don't know what he had. And the terminology is strange. Lo yadanu mehayalo. Really the terminology that should be said was what? Lo yadanu. We don't know what? Eifohu. We don't know where he is. But not to say lo yadanu mehayalo. We don't know what there was to him. And Rabbi Volozhin explains in a fascinating way. He says that what was bothering the Bnei Yisrael was the fact that Moshe Rabbeinu seemed to have had a grasp on them. He seemed to have had some magical, mystical way about him that motivated them to do good. You know, you have this thing like, your son is in a certain class, and he has a certain Rebbe, and like the next year he's going to have a different Rebbe, and you get a little nervous because next year he's not going to have this Rebbe, and if he doesn't have this Rebbe, this past year's Rebbe, he knew exactly how to just like get him going and knew which buttons to push, and then the child would produce. But this other Rebbe, I'm not so sure. So basically, what you really need to do is you need to find out what is the magic. Blanche, everybody wants to know what vitamins you gave your kids. Why do they all turn out that way, right? They're all precious gems, and everybody's precious gems. So sometimes you go to the older state and you say, son, I want to know exactly what did you feed those kids? And then you say to them, something I fed them. What really it is it's who they are, and each one of them has his own natural abilities to be a leader and to be successful in a way that's uniquely theirs. But Bnei Yisrael, at that point in time, were really immature in the sense that they didn't yet have the confidence to realize that, for example, it says that the Bnei Yisrael fought against Amalek, correct? What happened? It says, during this war of Amalek, immediately after the Yam Suf, the splitting of the sea, Moshe Rabbeinu was davening, and when Moshe lifted his hands, Bnei Yisrael won the war. And if Moshe Rabbeinu would lower his hands, Bnei Yisrael would begin to be defeated. And the Gemara says, what do you mean? Did Moshe Rabbeinu's hands, do they have a magical... What the teretz is, because when they looked at Moshe's hands and they were raised to the heavens, that motivated the Bnei Yisrael to think about Hashem. And therefore they would win. But when his hands would be down, then their spirit would be down. And if their spirit would be down, they wouldn't have the ability to be victorious. But Bnei Yisrael didn't realize that. They thought that Moshe Rabbeinu had some type of a power about him, and that if he would be gone, all would be lost. So that's why they said, make us a new God to motivate us, because this Moshe, lo yadanu, we don't know, mehayalo, what he had. It makes good sense. What did he have? What was it about him that did the trick? My friends, that is the difference between the written law and the oral law. The written law is straightforward. It says clearly and very, very bluntly exactly what Hashem's will is. Torah Sheba'al Peh doesn't do that. Torah Sheba'al Peh requires you to be knowledgeable. It requires you to be independent. It requires a certain sense of confidence to enable you to derive one law from another law, associate one situation to another situation. Whenever you go to a rabbi and he passes a shayla for you, and he tells you what the halacha is, he's always careful to tell you, be careful, and you can't apply this particular psak to another situation. Why? Because we are not as well versed in the association between two halachos. And we'll say, well, listen, an orange, you make a bar priya eitz, correct? So what about an orange pepper? You make a bar priya eitz? Well, if you walk out of the rabbi's office and you say, if you give him an orange and you say make a eitz, then you come home and you have an orange pepper. You say, listen, that one was orange and it made a eitz. So this one is orange and you make an eitz too, and realize it's two completely different reasonings. The reason why the orange, you make orange, there's nothing to do with it being orange. It had to do with the fact that it grew on a tree. And the pepper grows from the ground, you make a hadama. That's the reason why when the men spend all that time in the Beis Medrash, they spend all that, this is an easy association. But when they're learning Gemara and they're learning Talmud and they're learning how to derive halachos and all of that svara, that's really what they're doing. That's the beauty of Torah. Hashem put it into our hands to be able to make those decisions to the extent that if Hashem would come down, if you have 50 Rabbanim saying one halacha and 10 Rabbanim saying an opposite halacha, we paskin always after what? We follow the majority. We follow the majority. Let's say Hashem would come down and say, no, that's not the halacha. We would say, Hashem, excuse me, you told us, and then we go after the majority. And there's a Gemara that says that Hashem came and the walls were shaking and the water went upstream. Nope. This is the way Hashem gave us the Torah to be confident enough to paskin. That's what Bnei Yisrael were missing by Kabbalah Torah. They weren't yet versed enough, and they thought they needed Moshe Rabbeinu to be the one to instill in them the confidence to move on. This is always a very big, major issue whenever we lose a leader. And we're always afraid, how are we going to be able to carry on? We lose an older family member, right? When the great-great-grandfather passes away, we say, guess what? We're going to carry on because we're going to be the bubbies and we're going to be the Zadies and we're going to be the elder bubbies and we're going to be the elder Zadies, right? But that's something that you need confidence for. In the time of Purim, that's when the Bnei Yisrael were tested again. Because in the time of Purim, if you look at the scenario, it is doomsday. Here you have Bnei Yisrael living in Golus. They're in exile. They're living in Shushan. And Achashverosh makes a party. And the real thought behind the party was to get the Jews to sin. That's what Haman wanted to do at the time. And the Jews had a dilemma. Should they go to the party or should they not go to the party? What ended up happening is that the Jews had this dilemma. What did Mordechai say? Go to the party or don't go to the party? Mordechai said, you better not go to that party. You're going to pay for it dearly. But Israel said, but Achashverosh is going to be upset. We have to go. He said, don't go. They said, go. And they went. They didn't listen to Mordechai. Did anything happen as a result of them going to that party? Many years of wonderful relationship with the government. It wasn't until many years later, 7 years later, 9 years later, that Haman becomes the prime minister. What does Achashverosh command? Everyone in the courtyard has to bow, and Mordechai won't bow. And the Jews say, Mordechai, if you don't bow, you're going to get us into big trouble. What happens? Mordechai doesn't bow. Within 24 hours, there is a decree that every Jew, man, woman, child, every piece of property of the Jew, everything will be annihilated. The Bnei Yisrael, I want to ask you, if it would have been a rabbi in our generation, there would have been this zealot that would have walked into the government offices and said something very strong against the government, which would have breeded a decree that all Jews will be expelled from this country within the next 12, 11 months. I want to ask you exactly what would have happened to that rabbi. Oh my gosh, they would have lynched him. They would have said it's his fault. Mordechai gets up on his soapbox in town center and he says, Bnei Yisrael, I'm telling you, you know why we have this decree? Because 9 years ago you went to the Achashverosh Suda. You went to his party. I want to ask you, is it logical? Would anybody say, he must be right? Nothing happened for 9 years. Here he's not bowing, and there's a decree. I mean, we know what happened. You know what happens. When a rabbi gives Musar in shul, what happens? We always tell you over that story, right? The 3 generations, right? 3 generations of rabbis. 3 generations of rabbis. The rabbi used to get up and give the Musar to the people. It's too much talking in shul. We're coming late. We have to do tshuva. The rabbi, he's talking to me. The rabbi, he wants to. I have to change my ways. That was the first generation. Then the second generation. The rabbi. Yankel's sitting down the end of the row. He's giving it to him. And he's talking about that one, and he's talking about that one. I mean, me, it doesn't apply to. And in the third generation, oh, he's talking to me, he's talking to me. But at the next board meeting, I'll make sure that they vote him out and that he's not rehired. Mordechai goes up and he says, it's your fault, guys, because you went to Ahasuerus' party. They could have easily said to him, you know what? Let's get rid of Mordechai. We'll get it out of this way, and then go back to Haman and beg for our lives. Now, was there any way for them to find out the real truth? Were they able to get on the phone and call customer service or call Hashem? My father-in-law always says you could dial heaven 7-1000. Hello, Hashem here, can I help you? Yes, Hashem. I'd like to know, is this decree because of Mordechai, or is this decree because of... They had no way to tell. They only had their emunas tachamim. They had to use their own independent way of thinking. They needed to employ Torah Sheval Peh. There was no way to find out the real truth, and they ended up following the word of Mordechai. That's when they re-accepted Torah Sheval Peh. That's when this new nace happened. There was a reaffirmation that we could stand on our own 2 feet. And what's the biggest proof to that? Find Hashem's name anywhere in Megillas Esther. You won't find Hashem's name. It's Hamelach, 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 which is a hint to Hashem. But Hashem's name, why? Because he was hidden. He said, I'm not here to tell you what to do. It's going to be your decision. Is this just a coincidental turn of events? That there's a party, Vashti gets killed, Esther becomes queen, Haman becomes prime minister, Mordechai doesn't bow. Oh, it's just a seemingly incongruent, unconnected sequence of events. And Israel decided, no, we're going to listen to the Chachamim. That's the miracle of Purim. And I say that that's something that the Bnei Israel need in this generation. That's something, it's a big lesson for nowadays. It's a big lesson for nowadays because, you know, we have so much put into our hands. We have so many critical decisions to make. We have to gather the confidence. We have to gather the knowledge. We have to gather the teachings of our parents and our Rebbeim and our Moros and our grandparents and say, you know, what they had told us to do. What was the lifestyle that they led? What was I raised with to make me a thinker and be able to take responsibility for the future and for the destiny of myself and my family in the big picture of Klal Yisrael. I think that if we'll do that, we will really have a tremendous uplifting of spirits on Purim. We'll be able to say, wow, HaKadosh Baruch Hu loves us. Hashem is going to do nisim for us. HaKadosh Baruch Hu sees that we're a nation that's able to get our act together, able to put ourselves on the map. And we have that in many situations. We have it in our own school. We have to be able to stand on our feet and be able to pull through and be able to say, HaKadosh Baruch Hu, be proud of the fact that you gave us this Torah Sheval Peh. You gave us this oral law that puts the power and the future of Torah into our hands. It's our responsibility. If you make it, you make it. If you blow it, Chas v'shalom, so many other people. And it's just unfortunate that so many of them are our own fellow Jews, took it into their own hands and went in the wrong direction. It's our responsibility to show, to stand with pride and say it's possible to do it on your own and move it in the right direction. Still be part of the world that HaKadosh Baruch Hu put us into and be able to shine forth with a confidence and a pride that's a Kiddush Shemayim. And with that Kiddush Hashem, will carry us through to the ultimate Yeshua, to the ultimate set of miracles that the Mitzvah Hashem will lead us to Mashiach Tzidkenu. Pray Purim to all.